John Weeder, a.k.a. Stugotz, co-host of the Dan Le Batard Show. Good morning, sir. How are we feeling today?
We're feeling okay. You guys are writing off the Heat, huh?
Yeah.
Like it has to be like the 16th time you've written off the Heat during the playoff run.
First of all, I've never written off the Heat. I've been riding with the Heat this entire time, and I was doing – this is my – you know how this business works. You got to zag in the right moment, and this is where I'm selling the stock. Like, I carried it all throughout the playoffs. I really liked Miami. I loved the team toughness. I even loved it last night where there's just moments where they're just taking shots like a chippy hockey team at different Denver Nuggets players, and I go, I wonder if this is eventually going to have a cumulative effect. I just think Jokic is unfazable. And having that guy who is just willing to stare down Jimmy Butler, but is the best player in the series and completely unflappable no matter what you do to him, I just think that this is the guy where they've met their match.
And listen, and maybe you're right. They're down 2-1. They have a home game coming up on Friday night, so they can get it back to 2-2, and then it becomes a best of 3 with 2 games on Denver's home court. So we'll see. Listen, Jokic is, I was critical of him yesterday, but Jokic is the best player in the game, and my criticism of Jokic is not that he's not great. That's not the guy the NBA wants to showcase as its best player, because the game at times is ugly. It is. At times it's beautiful, but at times it's ugly as well. It's not LeBron. It's not Jordan. It's not Kobe Bryant. He doesn't have a game like that, but he's a great player. I thought the point you guys made as I was on hold was the best point. Like, Jamal Murray is the second best player in this series, and so that's problematic for the Miami Heat. And listen, Jimmy Butler is a guy. It's so fascinating what has happened, guys, with Jimmy Butler, because he was a guy that, 5 years ago, most people, including Stan Van Gundy on our show, said, if Jimmy Butler's your third best player, you have a championship team. If he's your second best player, you have an excellent team. Yeah. But if he's your best player, you have no shot at winning an NBA title. And I don't know what's happened to Jimmy Butler. People talk about Heat culture and this and that, but I'm just amazed that he is their best player, and they've been in the finals 2 of the 4 years he's been here, in the Eastern Conference Finals 3 of the 4 years he's been here. So I'm not ready to write him off yet, because every time Jimmy Butler says, I got to come out with more energy, I got to play better, he does it, and the Heat ends up winning the game. And so 2-1 feels lousy today, but 2-2 will feel a lot better if they can get there.
Well, this Miami's team is tough, and they've got probably the best coach in the NBA. I don't even really know who we're at this point supposed to say is better than Eric Spoelstra, given the track record that he's had. And you've got a guy who, when you get late in games, just fits against any team's best player. All of a sudden, if Jimmy Butler can just be hanging around, and we've seen this with, like, how many fourth quarter comebacks have the Heat had where it was, this game's over, and then they start to roll and Jimmy starts doing his thing, and it's just, they came back and they won. The Grant Williams game, obviously the most famous one, but they came back down big against Milwaukee. They've done this multiple times throughout the postseason. They've got a bunch of different shooters, and they're tough as nails. They're not afraid or intimidated by anybody. And when the game starts to get late, and the refs start to swallow whistles a little bit more, and you can get away with it, and Miami's just been chipping away. I think it has a cumulative effect. And this is where, man, I want to dive into the Miami fan sports psyche a little bit with you, because Toronto would die for a team like this, because Toronto always feels like underrated and underappreciated, and frankly, like, we can be crybabies about it all the time. Like, anybody dismisses Toronto with one spot in a power ranking in the States, and we're like, nobody cares about us, and we're not taken seriously. It's really bad. It's bad. Our inferiority complex can get bad. But I was thinking about Miami as a sports town where you guys basically get disrespected all the time, where it's just, hey, it's nice there. There was the Ray Allen game where the people didn't get back into the stadium, right? The famous people that wanted to get back in and couldn't do it.
It was one of them.
Yeah, it's just, and like, not being early in the seats with LeBron. I am kind of curious just how a guy like Jimmy Butler, who is underrated and continues to have a team, like you mentioned, get written off but make it happen, how that sort of ties in with the psyche of a Miami fan.
It's funny with Miami fans. All the things that people say about Miami fans, they're true. I mean, we show up late, we leave early. All of a sudden, everyone in town is a hockey fan.
Are they?
I mean, oh my God! You get the Panthers in the Stanley Cup, you get the Heat in the NBA Finals, And so it's just been a fun time around here. You know, we're a couple of months removed from having UM and FAU in the Final Four. Messi's coming down here. There's some hope and optimism with the Dolphins. And so it really is. And the Marlins are a pretty good baseball team. So it really is a pretty good time to be a Miami sports fan. But here's the problem. And I'm not certain the rest of the country and your country is wrong, okay? Meaning the remainder of the United States and all of Canada, okay? They feel like we don't deserve any of this. And you know what? They're probably right because we're not the greatest. We're not the greatest group. Like when we got LeBron, people weren't frustrated that we got LeBron. They were frustrated because they felt like we didn't deserve LeBron, you know? And so listen, we are not the best sports town by any stretch. We hop on the bandwagon. We show up to games late. We leave games early. We bail on our teams if they're down 2-1 in the NBA Finals. And so people therefore feel like, hey, they don't deserve all the riches that they're getting. Like, why are they getting Messi?
Yeah.
Why is Jimmy Butler – how did Jimmy Butler become so good when he was in Miami but was kind of, decent, average everywhere else? And what's going on with this hockey team? And so, they just feel – listen, it's the sun, the beaches, the weather, and they don't want us to have any other good things. They don't want us to have good sports teams because they don't feel like we deserve them. And you know what? To an extent, they're probably right.
Yeah, no, now I feel bad. Because I was going to ask you, is Miami properly rated, underrated, or overrated as a sports town? And I'm like, no, you guys are properly rated. The problem is that your guys' show is a sports hub in North America, right? So one of the actual, biggest spots you can go to, biggest destinations everywhere, like you guys are a top podcast up here in Canada too, is Miami driven. And every once in a while, like, Mike Ryan, especially, who made fun of my Leafs postgame show on your guys' program. Still hurt a tiny little bit, Mike. So he took shots at our analysis of the series. I was like, okay, I see how this is.
But wear that like a badge, guys. Like, don't be offended by it.
No,
Mike Ryan just being a dope.
Nothing could be further to the truth. Actually, wore it exactly like that as a badge of honor. But. Yeah. You have him give these impassioned speeches every once in a while about Miami sports, and like you guys obviously care about some of these teams and some of these players, and you go, maybe people do care about them there, and then you come on and you're like, nah, it is nice here.
No,
we've got the taxes, we don't deserve it.
What Dan and I set out to do is create a show that kind of reflects the market. It happens to be. Listen, we had some success in large part because we didn't spend all our time talking about local Miami sports and X's and O's. Like when Dan and I started out in Miami, it really felt like a national show. And Dan and I were smart enough to realize, like, hey, there's only so much you can talk about locally here in Miami. You got to kind of like expand the range of topics because people just don't. We don't care about a bunt in the fourth inning of a Marlins game. That's not what people care about down here in Miami. We care about big things. We care about big events. We care about Lionel Messi. We care about, when our teams get to the Final Four. We just, and I know, listen, Mike's from here. I'm not. I'm from New York. Mike cares about Miami and South Florida in a way that I never will, in a way that I never could. I love the audience. I love the people down here. It's become home to me. But Mike is very protective of the city of Miami as a sports town and just as a town in general. But it's not the greatest sports town. Fact. Like, that's it. And Mike knows that. Dan knows that. I know that. And that's why we've kind of catered the show, not just to a local audience, but to a national audience. So it is funny that the biggest sports podcast in North America, essentially, is a show that's born and based out of Miami. It's ridiculous. It's vastly absurd.
More. You have more now.
I think Dan and I always just say, hey, let's make you laugh and not do X's and O's.
Yeah, and that's really smart. And I think that the problem that a lot of program directors made when they were looking at sports radio and, sports podcasts in general was just thinking that they were trying to replicate New York and Boston, right? Where they're going, hey, look, this is where people care the most about sports. And you go, most of the rest of the, North America is not that way. We're high event people. Same thing in Toronto when you're talking about that. Like, I think Toronto, I'll always say this because I'm here, is a better sports town than Miami. But same thing to a certain degree. Like, we always claim we love hockey here. Like, we're so passionate about hockey in the Maple Leafs. Like, you go down a rung to the team that's below them, their AHL franchise, you can get a ticket for that like you just walk up and go, "Can I go in there?" And they'll be like, "Yeah, I guess so. There's no one in here, so let's just go inside."
Yeah.
We're an event city. We care about the big stuff. We also don't really care about the bunts there. And yeah, I think that you guys did a really smart thing. So staying on this topic though, what is the Panthers' interest right now? Because this is fascinating. This actually did piss me off when I was listening to Mike and I was getting actually all those tweets from people going, "Hey, they were making fun of your guys' show." I was going at Florida hard on basically what you said, which is they don't deserve this. Like, this isn't right that they're going to beat the Toronto Maple Leafs, who are dying for championships. And then Mike's like, "I care just about the Panthers as much as the Leaf fans care about the Leafs." I was like, you have absolutely no idea. You have absolutely no clue what this means to the city. We celebrated a first-round win in the Stanley Cup playoffs as though it was a championship. There were people chanting in the streets. It was embarrassing, man. It was embarrassing. That's where we're at. We're a laughing stock in the sport that we care most about, the team that we care most about.
No, you're not. What I'm laughing at. It's the perfect example of what it is we are talking about, okay? You guys care about hockey, that sport and that team, in a way that we will never care about that sport and our team.
I know.
And yet we beat you, and that has to...
I hate it so much. And you did it with the tougher team. The tougher, cool team.
No, I'm sorry to laugh, but that's why people can't stand South Florida. Yeah. It's like, hey, 6,000 people show up to Panthers games, and Toronto strolls in. We care about this sport. We love this sport. We're passionate about this sport. We actually know what we're talking about when we discuss the sport, and yet we lose to a city that couldn't care less. And so that has to be, like, Dan and I apologize to the entire country of Canada because A, we beat you, B, we're in the Stanley Cup, and C, you guys care and you care about the sport. You love hockey, and yet you're saddled with the Vegas Knights and Florida Panthers. Yeah. Like, that has to be devastating to everyone who cares about that sport. But that's what we're talking about. And so the attitude with hockey is funny. We're in the Stanley Cup. Of course the place is being sold out. I jumped in my bandwagon. I went to a game, you know. And so
what'd you think?
And, you know, the tickets are expensive, but we don't deserve this. Like, I'm telling you, if you went to a Panther game 3 months ago, there may have been 5,000 people there.
Buddy, we're aware.
And here we are finding ourselves a couple of games away from winning the Cup.
We are painfully aware because the joke is that you can always go to a Panthers game for cheaper than, like, the flight, the Airbnb, the hotel, and the Panthers ticket is cheaper than just a night here in Toronto. And there's so many snowbirds that are down there that go to these Panthers games that was one of the big talking points was you guys weren't even going to have home ice advantage. And I think that's the frustrating. I have people tweeting at me, and I don't even know if it's real, where they do the, hey, I don't think that they're playing some of these games in Miami sports bars. And I go, is this true? Like, what is the extent of some of this stuff? Like, that's what I mean. Like, for your guys' show, it's obviously not one of the huge coverage standpoints. You said it. Miami's not really this town. It's like Florida wins a Stanley Cup. What even happens? They have a parade and it's gone. I feel as though the momentum for that doesn't roll over whatsoever, right?
No, probably not. Like, it took the Heat not winning a championship, but a bunch of championships. It took like 35 years. It's taken the Heat to really kind of overtake the Dolphins. But during that stretch, the Heat have done a ton of winning. Like, they have done, you know, Eastern Conference Finals, of course, LeBron, back-to-back NBA titles. They've been to the finals here a couple of times. They won one with Wade and Shaq when Riley took over, came back to coach. So they've won 3 championships. They've been to the finals a bunch. They've been to the Eastern Conference Finals. And so, you know, people really care about that team. It's in Miami. It's really, like, down in the city of Miami. The Panthers, it's a strange deal. They went to the Cup back in 96, 97. They've been dreadful until, I guess, last year when they won the President's Cup and then got bounced out in the second round. This year they make a run to the Stanley Cup. We'll see how it finishes out. But if they were to win the Stanley, if they won an NBA championship, it would just tack on to what the Heat have already done. Like, they've really made inroads in this city. They've become more popular than the Miami Dolphins. If the Panthers win a Stanley Cup, will it have some sort of carryover to next year? The reason I bring up the geography and where the Heat play, the Panthers play out in the swamps, like in the Everglades, in the middle of nowhere. Like, there's nothing around their arena. Yeah. It's not in Fort Lauderdale. It's not in Miami. It's in a city called Sunrise.
Yeah.
There's a mall, a couple of car dealerships, and some old sports bars around there, and nothing else. Like nothing else. It's in the middle of nowhere. So, if they win, are you ever going to draw from Miami up to Broward County, the city of Sunrise? No, you're not going to get hockey fans to come from Miami to Broward County. You do have probably more Toronto fans than you do Florida Panther fans down here. If they win the Cup, will they see a spike in ticket sales next year? Sure. They won the Stanley Cup. Will they see like a sellout of season? Absolutely not. You will never see that down here in South Florida unless they win like 7 Stanley Cups in a row.
Yeah.
And we all know that's not going to happen. And even in that scenario,
yeah.
I'm not certain it would have any impact on the popularity of the sport down here. It's just, we have other things to do like windsurf.
Yes, and good for you. Honestly, you have the no taxes and the beautiful weather and the gorgeous women and the beaches and the clubs. It's great. No, and you got LeBron.
Teams are good.
Yeah, and your teams are good. And
we're up here. Everyone hates us.
We're up here. It's smoky as hell. We got all these wildfires out here. The only time it's not cold. We get taxed out the ass, and we're just sitting here being like, yeah, that's great. Good for Miami that they've got their 12 fans there that really care. That Mike Ryan is really happy about this. Okay, so the rich get richer.
Feel free to move down here, man. It's open to anyone. Okay?
I'll tell you this: the only good thing that I hate about Miami is that Dolphins stadium. Getting out of there was the most hellish thing that's ever happened to me. And I was there on the one time where there was actually a complete sell the Thursday night game. I think it was 2 years ago against Baltimore. I've never been to a stadium I hated more leaving. I sat in a Sonic parking lot waiting for a Uber for like 45 years before a guy came and took me back to my hotel, and it cost me like $300 for the privilege. I was not pleased with the stadium location and the things that were around it. But the rich get richer. Now you get Messi. And so, what's the reception going to be like this before you go?
It's going to be interesting. It's funny. Mike Ryan, I have to give him credit. He has been all over this story. He was the first one to report it. He's not getting nearly enough credit. He certainly deserves it because he was way out in front of this story in terms of Messi coming to Miami and coming to Major League Soccer. It's exciting. He turned down a lot more money. I'm certain that, that will be made up to him in some way, shape, form, fashion. We'll see how that works. I don't know if Messi's seen the soccer stadium down here in Fort Lauderdale. It's not.
Yeah, he thinks he's walking into Camp Nou.
It's not exactly what he's accustomed to. It's kind of a dump. I know they plan on renovating it, making it better. It's not complete yet.
I wonder if he thinks it's like a good enough practice facility for him. Like when he shows up there, he's like, "These decent practice facility." Like it's to be like, "This is all right."
Oh no! When he walks into it, he's going to think he's at the practice.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like,
in fact, I would say he's been at practice facilities that are nicer than our stadium.
That's so good. As he's greeted by the Marlins' best player, like, "Welcome to Miami." He's maybe he made a poor choice here. I hope he gets a lot of money. Hope he really wants to be an owner.
It's really all of this is really. Like, I think Messi knows, and listen, no, it's going to be great. Like, it's great for MLS. There's no question about it. And it's great for the city of Miami, and people will be excited. Like, people in South Florida are gonna flock and flood to these games because, he's the game's greatest player. You can dispute, go back and forth with, whomever you want to, but he is the game's best player, most popular player, most well-known player, and people do love soccer down here. Like, the ratings for the World Cup are always great down here. So I think it's a great fit. I think Messi's going to be well received down here. I hope he receives the facilities as well as we receive him. And then I think he'll be, listen, I hope he's used to playing in front of 10, 15,000 fans because that's all we got down here. And, but we'll see. Like, it's really exciting. All of this is a tribute. Like, Damian Lillard wanting to be here. Messi wanting to be here. Big time at LeBron choosing here. It's really, forget about Miami as a sports town. Miami's just a cool town. And that's really, you got the weather, you got the no state tax. There are things to do. There is, there's a lot of art and culture and just a lot of stuff down here that is attractive to a lot of athletes. And so it's a cool city. There's a reason these athletes know that we're not the greatest sports town. We don't have the greatest sports fans. Yet they still choose Miami. Why? Because it's a cool city. It's a fun city with great weather, with things to do, with no state tax. And their teams are actually pretty good. Like, choosing the Heat is not a bad thing. The Heat have one of the best organizations anywhere in sports.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really just a tribute to our city that people want to be here because they want to live in cold weather.
Yeah, no, congrats. Congrats on it all. This is great. Again, it's like,
I'm sorry you guys
now
are
you
stuck
guys,
in Toronto.
no, but now you're like, yeah, and we get Messi. We got a really tall tower. I don't know if you ever heard of it. It's really tall. It's up there. Drake sat on it. It was pretty sweet. Drake's here sometimes, buddy. Okay, like how dare you try to knock us?
The problem is Drake's also elsewhere a lot.
Yeah,
too,
we Miami. He's there like a lot.
Exactly.
He's in Miami a lot. No, and almost
and why? Because there were things to do in nice weather. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say that too. Is it's almost like rich guys who are young in their prime like being on beaches, saving money, and having access to a ton of different things. That seems like it's like their bigger priority than fans. They're like, but are there gonna be fans there? Like, oh no. It's like, but this is just so infuriating that it's like Florida gets, Tom Brady, Lionel Messi, LeBron James. It's like, enough, all right? You know, I hope you guys sink. I hope you
Everyone,
sink.
listen, here's the key to attracting all these athletes, okay? No state tax, the sun, nice weather, beaches, the ocean, and yachts. Okay, that's all you need.
Yeah,
I mean
that's all you need. It's good formula. Hey, John. John, thanks so much for making time for the show today. It's always fun getting to chat. Congrats on all the things that you have that we don't. Take care, brother.
Now you're going to make me feel bad for the remainder of the day.
Yeah, good. I hope you. That's what we do up here. Guilt. That's our thing. We got it down. John Wiener, a.k.a. Stugotz.
Enjoy that. Enjoy all that smog and whatever's going on.
It's nice. Builds character. You guys never heard of that.
It hasn't gotten down here yet.
Someday. See you, man. John Wiener, a.k.a. Stugotz, co-host of the Dan Le Batard Show.